All right, back at it here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with us as always. Although moving around to the big board, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, comes to you from the upper right. Eric Eager, the foundation of it all now, from Sumer Sports, Sumersports.com. At the bottom, I get to the top left. Was I there last time? I can't remember. Anyway, my name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City, 810WHB.com. If you'd like to check out my radio show, 2 to 6 p. Monday through Friday, that's Central Time. We got a lot to get to here in our Red, Gold, and Bold. Double dip. Thank you to all our friends over on the Too Deep podcast who joined us a little bit earlier. I'm pretty sure Eric's going to be back with us. I think he fat-fingered and dropped out. Yeah, classic. I want to leave him out for a second, Jeff. We'll leave him there watching for a second. For everyone who watched our Too Deep, we're doing a couple of podcasts tonight, our Too Deep NFL podcast. It normally comes your way on a Wednesday. We did that earlier tonight, so if you haven't checked that out yet and you're a fan of the Red, Gold, Bold podcast, check out Jeff, Eric, and myself on the Too Deep podcast. If you're listening to us on the podcast, we stream live Tuesdays at 9 p.m. with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. If you want to check it out, be a part of the chat room on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can do it. Okay, he's out of timeout. We bring Eric Eager back into the mix. You can check out the podcast and be a part of the stream and comment as people are already commenting. Like this one, I'm not sure where this one comes from. Come on, Soren, put down the Cheetos and get this podcast started.
Wow, that's lame.
Yeah, how about that? I'm getting beat up here pretty good.
I think it's an orange joke. You got that Syracuse on. It's an orange joke.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't think that's it. Knowing Tommy, I know Tommy a little bit, and I don't think it's an orange joke. I'm pretty sure it's what we in the business call a fat joke. But, yeah, I can take it. We do have a lot we want to get to here today in the podcast. Bigger reason for the Chiefs' loss to the Bills, was it no Tyreek Hill or Von Miller being a Buffalo Bill? We want to talk a little bit about, is Josh Allen the equal now to Patrick Mahomes? Have we settled that debate? Has the Chiefs' offensive line been overrated all along? Can the Chiefs fix their run game? Willie Gay Jr., Trent McDuffie scheduled to return. Will that fix whatever ails the defense? Will George Karlaftis be found? Jeff Chadiha made the point. He's been on a milk carton for a while. Don't know that anyone found him this past week, the number 30 overall pick of the draft. Does the Kelce restructure mean a roster move is imminent? Let me look here. I'm going to say what I'm seeing. No, not what I'm getting back now. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. How much does the status of Trent Williams and Nick Bosa play a role in the outcome of Sunday, and who wins this game? Jeff, let's start with that question up at the top. Bigger reason for the Chiefs falling to the Buffalo Bills. Is it because the Bills were able to get Von Miller, or the Chiefs didn't have Tyreek Hill? Which one do you say?
It's close. I mean, I think it's because Tyreek Hill doesn't play for the Chiefs anymore. And I love what Von Miller has brought to that defense. And I made this comment on our earlier podcast, that the Bills play with great patience. And when you don't have to worry about trying to score every drive, you can be patient. When you get into situations where you have a turnover early in the game, you can say we can still be patient. When you are late in the game and you have to close it out, having Von Miller is great. But it also allows a cornerback like Teron Johnson to jump a route because he's not 30 yards down the field trying to defend Tyreek Hill. And so I feel like for the first time watching the Chiefs play in this kind of a game, that Mahomes was the quarterback who felt the pressure more. I think he felt like he had to do more stuff because he didn't have his favorite weapon in this contest. And so while Von Miller made some plays, and it was important, they were important plays, I think Patrick Mahomes experienced for the first time what it's like to not have that kind of weapon in this kind of game.
Yeah, that's interesting. Where do you sit? What was the bigger impact for you? Von Miller being a Bill or Tyreek Hill not being a Chief, Eric?
I think it was Von Miller being a Bill. Like, I agree that Tyreek Hill being gone has had an effect on the offense. You certainly can't mistake it. And, they miss it. I mean, Valdez-Scantling has a 90-yard game on Monday night, 0 catches the next game. Juju Smith-Schuster has had games where he's disappeared, and then he has a 100-yard game with a touchdown on Sunday. But there is something kind of missing, right? Like with that offense. Be that as it may, this is a Buffalo team that was unable to get that kind of pressure on Mahomes the last few times that they played, right? And we talked about this on the last show earlier, Too Deep, but the Bills came into Kansas City last year and kicked the Chiefs' ass because the Chiefs played like crap. This week, people will talk, people will chirp me about Tyreek Hill because I thought that the trade was a good move. And I'll say, look, the Chiefs defense gives up 50 to the Bills last year, right? That and the Chiefs defense kept them in the game today or Sunday. The Chiefs played a good game Sunday, and yet Von Miller was still able to wreck everything. And to me, that's the reason why he's my answer to this question.
Yeah, I think, listen, it does bear repeating that Tyreek Hill was traded for a reason, and there are going to need to be more trades like that. In fact, if you're not making trades like that, then Brett Veach isn't hitting the home runs he needs to hit as the general manager. I mean, you need to always be replenishing those picks. 7 picks a year is not enough to succeed with a quarterback that's going to carry the weight against the salary cap that a Patrick Mahomes will. There's a reason why the Patriots always had a ton of draft picks, because they knew, to Eric's point, Jeff, they had to throw more resources at it. So that trade happened. It's not coming back, and it needed to happen. This question isn't just about debating that. The question, though, is about, would that have been the difference? I did a poll today on my radio show about what's the biggest, what was if the Chiefs could make one move, right? Travis Kelce, and I don't think this is means. There's all kinds of stuff. Oh, this means they're going for Christian McCaffrey. This means they're going for Kareem Hunt. This means they're going for, whatever. Slow down. It doesn't. I can tell you nothing is imminent on any kind of trade front. And also this was done probably about a week ago and is just now seeing the light of day. But I did a poll. What would you want to see, right, amongst the fans, just to get their opinion? Would you want to see a running back, a wideout, an edge rusher, or an offensive tackle? And we know how much there's been an uproar over the offensive line. 65% said edge rusher is what the Chiefs needed most. Maybe that's a reaction to watching Von Miller do his business.
That's right.
It looks, hey, I want one of those.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. I'll bet, Jeff, the edge rusher, you love your defense. Eric definitely wants to protect the quarterback. I know that, or get him another weapon, right? But the reality is they're going to be wanting in a position every year, right?
Yeah, I mean that's I was doing radio this morning with the Border Patrol guys on 810. That's just the world you're going to live in when you have a quarterback who's making the kind of money Patrick Mahomes makes. The Buffalo Bills will be there after this year when Josh Allen comes off his rookie deal. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers have been there with Aaron Rodgers. The Patriots were there with Tom Brady. It's just a reality. You're not going to have everything you want to have to be able to go out and win championships. And I don't mean to – I think sometimes when you say, well, Tyreek Hill is not here, that you're taking a shot at Patrick Mahomes. And that's not to be the case, or that they shouldn't have made the deal they made. I think I was in support of that deal for the very reason you're talking about. When you're at this point, the Chiefs are at with Mahomes – draft capital means a lot more than taking a big swing on a free agent player. The point I'm making is that Tyreek Hill made life easier for everybody. And probably, as we're seeing, was a great deodorant. The same things that were here last year are here now. It's just that he's not here to make them go away with a 60-yard, touchdown catch or a 5-yard catch that turns into a 70-yard play. I can remember when this offensive line was one of the best offensive lines in football. It wasn't that long ago. I can remember we were having a conversation about this being the best offense in football. That was like 3 weeks ago. And so I don't think that those things have changed. I just think sometimes it's hard for people to accept that when you have a Tyreek Hill, he gives you a little more of an advantage in games like this because he does put pressure on an opponent, on an offense and on a defense. He does make life easier for your quarterback when he's getting out of the pocket and he's looking for a guy to make a play to. Well, I'll throw it to this guy instead of this guy more. And that's what I'm saying. And he makes it easier to determine coverages before, so that pressure that you're getting, Mahomes can recognize it faster. He can see the blitz faster. He can see where he wants to go the football faster. All these things become easier when you have a top receiver. See Josh Allen this past week and how he operated.
A couple things. Go ahead, Eric.
The one thing that concerns me, actually, and listening to your show, Petro, on Monday with Sam, it was, the answer to the question of like, do you think you need to do more quick stuff, right? Do you need to do more rhythm stuff? And the answer being like, no, Pat's good at maneuvering around all this nonsense. Like, I was a little concerned about that. I mean, when somebody
wait a minute, you credited Sam McDowell, but what the comment you're talking about
was Andy Reid.
I asked Andy Reid that, and that's what Andy's answer was.
Yeah, and I thought that was incredible, like the lacked introspection to a certain extent that I get worried about this because, Petro, you make a great point. Like this is the life they're going to have to live. Like everybody's like, oh, we should have kept Tyreek Hill. And it's like, no, like if you want to have Mahomes on the contract he's going to have, you got to make tough decisions, but you got to support those tough decisions. And I got a little bit like worried about that comment because it was basically like, no, everything's going to come. It's like, no, you got to face facts and live in the current reality you live in, which is that your run game isn't great because your 2 tackles are not playing good football. And those early down runs need to be replaced by 7-yard passes. And those are less likely going to happen when your quarterback is bailing out of pockets all the time.
Yeah, and this is one, and Tommy was making this point on our other podcast as well. He said the Chiefs still made a huge mistake in paying a guard a contract of 5 years, $80 million. What he wanted was them to not sign Joe Thuney and then use that money in re-signing Tyreek Hill. That sounds great. First of all, Tyreek Hill's deal is bigger than that. That's not all the money it took to get there, and you still need the draft picks, right? This is not just about Thuney for Tyreek Hill. And Thuney was part of a plan to tell your quarterback, I'm not going to get you killed, right? It was somewhat of a show of force, right? We're going to do everything to keep you upright. I'm going to tell you, any move that keeps the quarterback happy is a good move because we've seen what happens when franchise quarterbacks went out of town, they leave. And Bailey Zappi ends up being the guy that you're cheering for because your franchise quarterback left town, and you're hoping that you've caught lightning in a bottle again. So I get where Tommy's coming from, but that wasn't on the table, right? And frankly, I think Tyreek Hill had run his course in Kansas City and was going to go anyway. They got a great haul for Tyreek Hill. Yes, now it's upon Brett Veach and Andy Reid and the front office to find a guy to replace Tyreek Hill's abilities. Probably won't be one guy. They've replaced some of it with Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm intrigued by, Cole Hardman's getting healthier. He's making more of an impact. Let's see what happens when he's 100% healthy and what they do down the stretch. And yes, they need Sky Moore to come along or to find another wide receiver. But, the Joe Thuney part of it, Eric and I, we both have said left guard's not a premium spot. It's one of the reasons why I'll go back to whether it's left tackle or right tackle. You don't want to do it this week, fine. One more try with everybody in their spot, but you got a bye week coming up. You got some extra practices to try to shuffle some things around. If you can't handle the edge against San Francisco better, like I think it might be time to start, we have the question up there, and Jeff, you kind of alluded to it. Is this offensive line overrated? Yes, it is. It has been. It is, because the tackles are that big a weakness, at least the way things are being played right now. And why not shuffle it, shuffle the deck?
Yeah, but, again, there's a lot of ways to play football. A lot of things you can do to help an offensive line that's struggling. I mean, you can chip. You don't have to send 5 guys out and pass patterns every play. You can move the pocket. You can run the ball more effectively. We sat back here in week 4 after week 4 when they played Tampa Bay and said that's the blueprint. That's the way they got to play to be able to deal with an offensive line not being great, run the ball effectively, move the pocket, get the ball out quick. They did all that stuff, and then we said, well, they keep doing this. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it since. And that's a big part of this. Like Eric said, like when you're sitting there and you're talking, Andy Reid's talking about how you want to play and how you want your quarterback doing all this stuff. The quick game's not always on the table, this and that, because you want to be able to move around all this. I get all that. But you also have to understand that you have to be able to adjust. And sometimes I feel like Andy is not willing to do that. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is great, but you can't always rely on him to be great, especially when you take away a weapon as prolific as Tyreek Hill. That pass he threw in the corner of the end zone at the end of the first half, in the first quarter, was ridiculous. But he's throwing it because he's trying to do an amazing thing to give his team a chance to win. And to me, it shouldn't be that hard. I get it. He's done before and got away with it. But the guys catching the football now are different, and you have to adjust to that.
Although I will say, Eric, you're the biggest Valdez-Scantling. I think that he was the target on that at 6'4" inches tall. Go up and make a play.
He's got to make that catch. Like that's
yeah. I mean, it's a shaky throw.
He's got to make the catch. I mean, look, you're
two guys there.
You run the team.
I will say it does speak to the fact that Patrick Mahomes feels like he's got to make a play, right? That shows a lack of confidence in I'll throw it away and come back and we'll give it another shot. I mean, he felt like in that game, we got to get 7 here. They just botched it. I got to get 7. And I think the rest of the game said that maybe he didn't have to, but it does speak to where his mindset was on how good this team is. Not quite as good as the Bills. It's easy as that, Eric.
Yeah, my thing is Andy, to Jeff's point, Andy Reid just seems incapable of calling a game when Patrick Mahomes doesn't have his best stuff. Like, when he's clicking, the Tampa Bay game, for example, everything's working. But there are games when your starting pitcher doesn't have his stuff, right? And you need changeups. You need to get me over strikes, right? And like the Chiefs have no get me over, 0-1 pitches, right? They just don't have them. Like it's all this stupid RPO stuff where he's pulling the ball out of the belly of the running back and throwing a slant that's kind of like not that well timed and all this stuff. Like they need, and this happened in Green Bay, right? McCarthy ran his course. First year of LaFleur, Rodgers still wasn't the greatest. And then in 2020, the guy hit his back foot and started throwing the ball, 0.3 of a second quicker than the year before. And that was with the MVP. And that was truly the best season Rodgers has had in forever. And Andy is not calling those plays, or if he's calling them, Patrick isn't trusting them. But at some point, there need to be like 5 first downs a game where Patrick Mahomes rises up, hits his back foot, and throws a pass for 7 yards. And then that way, it's not as, Ray Charles can't see that the running backs are bad, right? Or like, or we're not worried about the offensive line not being able to block. It's like those are easy plays that guys like Daniel Jones can make. And unfortunately, the Chiefs are like, well, we don't have Daniel Jones, so we never have to run them. It's like, no, actually, like you should be running those plays because they're a down payment on successful offense, and they make life hard for Mahomes. And I'll say this, that's why like his PFF grade isn't always the best, because he works his way into harder throws that aren't necessarily going to like get his, they're not going to get the credit that they deserve sometimes, even though he's amazing for making those throws. Sometimes it's easier just to rise up and actually complete a ball for 7 yards on 1st and 10.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I like that have been in the chat room. One, Gary says this, it's a good point. He says, the problem with moving OBJ out of left tackle or Orlando Brown Jr. is that besides managing the game on the field, you have to manage the chemistry. There are metrics for the locker room being happy. That's fair. I mean, Jeff,
That's my point.
Yeah, he's coming right back at you. With that, you're like, oh, you're gonna have one pissy guy if you make that move. But that's part of Andy's job. Sell him on it, right? Like sell him on it. You got to try to win right now. And if Orlando Brown Jr. is not going to be back next year, how much does it matter that he'd be happy? Is Niang almost ready? No. Patella tendons generally take about a year. I don't think that's going to be, the answer, come running in there. I think, you made a good point, Jeff, when you said there are a lot of things you can do. And Andy Reid seemed to want to say, we need all 5 out. I talked to Trent Green, former Chiefs Pro Bowl quarterback on Monday, and he's like, listen, I want all 5 out there, and I'll just find the guy to get rid of it quick. Well, that's what you want your quarterback to say, just like you want your pitcher to have one more batter left in him, right? You want him to say that, but you got to make the right call. The key is to mix it up. And while Eric, I think I know, like what you said, don't run it on 1st down, throw it for 7 yards, right? Throwing is more efficient. That has proven itself over the years. Throwing the football is more efficient. It's proven itself in an era where they don't throw it on every down. If you throw it on every down, that changes things. And I think the other thing is, what if you can't be effective throwing the 7-yard slant? What if you can't be effective throwing it? Like I had this discussion with Tim Grunhard, who former Pro Bowl center for the Chiefs. Right? And he coaches high school football. He's won state championships. He's coached offensive line and the Big 12. I said, look, there are times that Andrew Wiley can't block Von Miller. He was going through, well, your technique and this. I said, come on, Tim. Technique my ass. He can't do it. He can't stay in front of Von Miller, right? If you know that you can't do that, then you know that you can't be super efficient passing the ball. I believe in throw to win, run when you're winning. But sometimes if you're going to be 25% on throwing the ball because your right tackle can't stay in front of this hell-bent pass rusher, shouldn't you maybe knock him on his ass a few times?
Yeah, but you need a running back who can exploit a hole. Like there was a first down run play where Clyde cut the ball back and it was him and a linebacker, and my guy can't he can't do it. So yes, I agree with you. I'm actually for this. Like this offensive line needs to get in a 3-point stance and run the ball on early downs. The problem is the running backs suck. Like Isaiah Pacheco can't he's cut on 30 other teams. He stinks. Like he can't play. And McKinnon's fine, but he's got, McKinnon's like me, man. McKinnon's like half the time he's got it and half the time he's old. And on Sunday he was old. Clyde, I'm sorry, Soren, and I'm going to lose money off of this, just like you. Clyde sucks, okay? He sucks.
No. The over on Edwards-Helaire rushing is going to come in. The 1,500 yards from scrimmage is going to happen. I refuse to give up now just 6 games in.
Eric's got Sky Moore.
I'm trying to reverse mush this. I've already gone into my sheet of bets I've made before the season and marked that as an L, a 0 payout on that bet. I'm trying to reverse mush it. But those 3 players suck. They are not good. Their running backs stink. And I don't care that Ronald Jones couldn't catch COVID in Florida. He can at least run the ball between the tackles. And if that's going to be what they have to do, give Ronald Jones a jersey on Sunday and let him play.
Yeah, look, I think Eric makes a great point. One, it's like you have to go back to why are they putting these guys on the roster in the first place? What do they want from these players? Because it's not like these guys are mysteries to them except for Ronald Jones. But my bigger issue with it is that not only are you not doing things to help your offensive line out, you're treating a lot of these guys like they deserve the football. I'm sorry. Stop throwing the football to Michael Burton. Stop throwing the football to Noah Gray. You're all these plays you want to scheme up for everybody to get a touch. It's okay to be fair to everybody, but not everybody's equal. You need to find a way to figure out who needs to get the football, who your difference makers are, because Sean McVay does this all the time with the Rams. You get caught up in this, I'm going to scheme this stuff up, and it doesn't matter who's out here running the routes, and I'm going to make these great offensive plays, big splash stuff. Hey, it's great when it's working, but when your offensive line starts hurting, and you don't have Odell Beckham out there and some other guys out there, and you're not running the ball effectively, guess what? It looks like ass. That's what you're getting right now with the Chiefs. They're trying to do too many things with too many players who don't need to be touching the football.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Although I will say in the Burton case, the throw was off. The play, they caught the Bills in a blitz, and if they can complete it, I think they've got big pay dirt. I would like to see Patrick Mahomes just go ahead and take the check down, quick. Get it out there to those guys and give them a chance in the passing game to in space make something happen. There are a couple of times
they had Pacheco in space one-on-one with the linebacker, and I was told that Isaiah Pacheco was good, and the guy, my guy is a 7th-round pick out of a dog shit program like Rutgers for a reason. He stinks. And he can't return a kick too. That's another story. But the guy can't run a kick back to save his life. Like there are players, and again, I said trade Tyreek Hill. I said and there are going to be guys on this roster that suck because of the quarterback salary. I get that, but we're 6 weeks in. We've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire run the ball. We've seen Isaiah Pacheco. He's batting 1 for 6 in good games this year. He's had one good game, maybe if you count Arizona, but that's 2 for 6. He's not good. It is time to I know the Denver Broncos would never trade with the Chiefs, even though they're never going to touch the Chiefs anyway. It's time to go out and get a Melvin Gordon type. It's time to go out and get a real running back. And they're already cheap. The league is awake to this idea. You go out there and get a guy that can run the football. Clyde, It's just not going to happen with Clyde. It's not going to happen. We have to stop pretending.
Can we highlight Aaron's statement? When CEH runs sideways, it looks like a hook pulling him off stage at the Apollo.
Yeah.
I will also
Not right.
I will also highlight Matt, who said, I would like to see CEH not try to make 2 cuts every time. Put your foot in the ground and go. I would agree. Like, whoever thinks that – look, first of all, Matt Milano's really good. I mean, we joked around about how my guy Sal Capaccio, who does sidelines in Buffalo for the Bills game, came on and talked about Matt Milano. And everybody's like, oh, my God, when the Chiefs won, like, the guy can play. But I will say this is the O-line overrated? And talking about the run game, how about somebody, and Timmy said he's like tired of watching the zone plays. He wants to see a little more power, a little more trap. We know we've talked about the RPOs for a couple of years. I think they've gotten away from that somewhat. We know they didn't on the Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now, he was open partially because of the RPO and had a touchdown call back because Creed Humphrey was downfield. So that's part of it. But, Timmy talking about the power runs, I agree with that. I'd like to see more of that power runs and more of the inside stuff. But when Clyde Edwards-Helaire, goes for the sideline on Matt Milano, he's not getting there. Milano's faster. So why not just power him straight ahead? I know he's 205 pounds, but he's a little bowling ball. Let's go with some inside stuff, and I think it would be more effective. And then, God forbid, you be able to play action off of something.
Yeah. Look, if you look the way Josh Allen was running the Bills offense, and granted, they've got more weapons than the Chiefs have offensively, it was a clinic because, they were probing what Steve Spagnuolo was doing. They weren't getting greedy. They could have thrown at 23 all day long, but they were, let's figure out formation-wise what they're running here. Let's set it up. We'll move Diggs into the slot. We'll get Davis on the outside, touchdown. We'll move Davis into the slot, put Diggs on the outside, touchdown. When Diggs would move around, Diggs pretty much nullified L'Jarius Sneed every time he was in the slot. They knew every time they got to cover this guy. And there were times when they backed off, he would just throw a quick pass to him. And it was just, that's what you need to be doing in Kansas City. Figuring out how can we create easy opportunities for Mahomes? How can we take some pressure off him and that offensive line if you're not going to do it with the run game? And I agree with you. I think that Bucs game again, downhill runs, power runs, it opens up play action. It makes the quick game a lot more effective. Why they don't want to do that consistently, I don't know. But it seems like after a game like this, you would want to go that route because the Raiders game really was a prologue to this. It was an indication of what's coming because you're going to see more pass rushers try and take advantage of those tackles, and you better have a plan that goes beyond just saying, hey, we're going to let Mahomes just make it happen.
Yeah, I think, listen, nobody wants to replace the passing game with the running game. They just want the running game to be more effective and to use it to help set up the passing game. Eric, can you fix the run game?
I think so. I mean, they're a more effective team. I think it's like something like 2/3 of their run game is zone right now. And zone requires a little bit of athleticism. This gets back to Orlando Brown being slow and fat. And then all that kind of stuff. They like to do the RPO stuff, which I believe, we talked about this last year. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't have access to the RPO data with PFF anymore. But last year when they ran RPOs, they were worse than when they just ran the ball or ran a pass play. And the benefit when you just run the ball instead of doing the RPO stuff is you don't have to do the zony kind of stuff that keeps you within a yard of the line of scrimmage, as we saw, Sunday on the Valdez-Scantling decline touchdown. Run power counter a man, run a downhill run, play. Get your linemen moving forward. I think Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and Joe Tooney, those are good football players. Use them in the power, run power 2/3 of the time as opposed to zone 2/3 of the time. And I think you're going to see a little bit of a difference. Also run Ronald Jones, run a running back that's actually run for 1,000 yards in the NFL before, as opposed to guys who we think, have run 1,000 yards in their life.
Yeah, combined.
Yeah, combined.
Can I just highlight Aaron's latest? Imagine the run game if Orlando Brown Jr. wasn't in the best shape of his life.
Yeah. But you know what though?
How much time did we
point.
spend? How much time did we spend in the offseason talking about how Orlando Brown Jr.'s plan was to be in the best shape of his life and everything? Like Aaron with the callback is just priceless.
But that's a great point. Someone just asked about the screen. It's hard to run a screen game when your O-linemen aren't as athletic as they need to be.
Right.
I even think with Trey Smith, I think he's banged up. I don't think he's at his best. But again, what this line could do well, they're not doing with them. And the same thing happened last year. It was just like, a buddy of mine, Daniel Jeremiah, was asked this question like started last year. And we were talking about it. He's like, man, you know what the problem with the Chiefs' offensive line is? They got a running offensive line. They don't run the football. That's in a nutshell what it is.
Yeah, I think I agreed. I think that's a great way to put it. I think it's fantastic, and I'll highlight this from Pig One. Problem is these guys just run into the back of the offensive line. I mean, there is a serious lack of vision.
I mean,
I will back up. Hang on, I will back up that it's too early to make a definitive statement about Pacheco, but he was drafted in the 7th round and averaged 3.9 yards per carry last year at Rutgers for a reason. Now, there are physical traits to like, and I think there's something, there to be gained from it. But, and let me just address the Kareem Hunt. I've talked with some people. It's not happening. Kareem Hunt there's like this thing going around right now on Twitter that the Travis Kelce move was made. First of all, it was made a week ago. It's just them clearing out cap. Will they listen at the deadline, November 1st? Yes. Is anything brewing? No, nothing's brewing. Maybe something will. They're in a position where they could, but nothing is brewing right now. And Kareem Hunt is not coming back to Kansas City. That's not going to happen. If anything, they'll just take this roll the cap credit over to next year and be able to help out with some of the stuff that they'll try to do in this next offseason. So let's settle down on that. Go ahead, Eric.
If this podcast doesn't work out, we can come up with a set of escape rooms in the Kansas City metro area and just sell them to Chiefs running backs because they're not getting out.
Oh, I love it. Now, look, I think we'd all.
Dominican Sue, by the way, guys, was a replacement level player last year. We're not bringing in this is not and I said we again. They're not bringing in Sue. Like this is not happening.
No, it's not happening. He graded lower than Rakeem Nunez-Roches last year. I mean, there's a reason why the Bucks don't have a Dominican Sue playing for them right now. There gets to be an end. They're also not bringing back Bob Lilly or Mean Joe Green. I don't even know if either one of them are alive, but they're not coming back. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball, though, Jeff. I mean, Willie Gay Jr., Trent McDuffie, does that excite you as if you're a Chiefs fan and looking at this team and saying, okay, we got a shot to really take a big step forward when those two guys get on the field?
I think Gay can help more than McDuffie. Somehow McDuffie is turning into Deion Sanders, and people act like I've not seen that.
Handy tackles.
Yeah, exactly. Tackle. Yeah, I haven't seen the guy play more than a half a football in the regular season in the NFL, and people act like, my God, we get him back and everything's going to change in the secondary. What's going to change this defense is the same thing that was going to change it last year. A better pass rush. That's where it starts. They're not getting it done up front. George Karlaftis is obviously in the same boat as the running backs, not really much of a presence. But I was of the belief that you're not – if you're relying on rookies to come in and just dominate, what the Jets are doing is great, and what they're getting out of Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall and those guys is great, but that's such an anomaly in the NFL. If you're getting 50% of your draft picks to come in and contribute in any kind of fashion, that's a great deal. Now, it does suck that McDuffie hadn't played much. Karlaftis is not doing anything, and Sky Moore is not a part of the offense. But that's just the way it goes sometimes. These guys aren't here for 1 year. They're here for 4 to 5 years at the very least. So, but they got to find a way to get to the quarterback. Yeah, you can't survive off blitzing guys like Josh Allen or Derek Carr or Justin Herbert, whoever you want to put up there. As much as Eric doesn't like Herbert, like all these guys will roast you if you're bringing blitzers, bringing pressure way too much. And they've been blitzing too much, and it's cost them. So, no, I don't think it's going – I think they will help. I don't think it's going to be a drastic change until the pass rush changes.
Yeah, I think And I agree with that. I do think McDuffie, I've liked what I've seen from him. You're right. Very little to see. And I think the fact that they moved up to get him is a good sign. I think they felt like this was a true first-round pick. And, Karlaftis is clearly a work in progress. He's a try-hard guy, but right now we're not seeing a whole lot of production out of him. He might be better if Frank Clark were better on the other side, just cleaning up, the quarterback's trying to get away. And your point about the draft picks is a big one because, I know we had it up there a little bit earlier. We had, I think it was, I don't know if it was Aaron or who it was that it's one of the regulars that was talking about, I don't think it was Aaron. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, I'm looking for it. But the Chris Jones is a candidate to be traded this offseason the same way Tyreek Hill was. If you can get a mountain of picks for him, you need to look at doing that just because your entire draft class won't cost as much as Chris Jones. Right. And so if you can find 3 good players out of 12, you're a better football team in trading Chris Jones for 3 players. Right. Because they will give you more productivity than Chris Jones can on his own. Now, believe me, I'm not trying to run out the only guy in the front 4 that's doing anything about getting to the quarterback. I'd love to see it work with Chris Jones in Kansas City. But I think those are the kind of moves that people need to be. It was Terry. Thank you, Terry. Terry put it out there. I knew it was one of the regs. It's just something to be ready for, but I do think it takes away a weakness, right? Like they definitely got to get at the passer better. I don't think that's going to happen a lot. I think Spagnuolo's going to have to continue to be kind of Kreskin with the pass rush. But if you don't have that weak point, you talked about, if you have McDuffie and he plays up to the level that you think, you maybe can blitz Snead off of Diggs, right? You just get deeper in that D backfield. I think that will help, but I get it, Jeff. Like we're talking about potential, right? Like that's what it is. It's not like you can hang out, but that's what they need. They need both those guys to be difference makers.
Yeah.
I'm still a believer in the defense, though. 17 points for 58 minutes against the number 1 scoring team in the NFL. That's not bad.
You take it. I mean, look, as much as we don't want to say it, as much as it's hard to say it, you're paying your quarterback a lot of money for a reason. He's got to take you down the field for the game-winning drive in that situation. They put them in the position. He didn't make the play.
Yeah, a minute 4 and 2 timeouts, and take it away on the first drive. I will say this, and it comes from a lack of pass rush. They do not take the football away.
No,
right? They do not take the football away.
Yeah.
They did restructure Travis Kelce's contract. I've said it. No trade is imminent, but it does give them a little bit more cap room. Eric, where do they go with the biggest need? I mentioned the poll we had. Is it O tackle? Is it edge? Is there anybody out there that you think could be someone to target there? I will tell you from what people I've talked to, there is nothing that's brewing right now. Everyone's staring at their phone and it'll heat up in that last week. But is there someplace you think there could be a connection?
I don't think that there's going to be anything because, they've passed every one of the tests as far as this is concerned. Like the only thing that would change their mind is the fact that this AFC is a lot flatter than we've all believed it would be, right? We thought that the Bengals were going to be better. We thought that the Chargers were going to be better. We thought the Broncos were going to be better. We thought, like a team like the Colts would be better. And all those teams are kind of like whatever. That could sway the Chiefs. But for the most part, the Chiefs since the last, since the Bengals game, where they lost in the AFC title game, they've stayed this course. And a trade, right? There's a couple things, by the way, that people have to realize. The NFL draft in April is in Kansas City. They're not trading the first round pick. Like
I would back off on that. I talked to some folks. I know Brett Veach said that, and he looked pretty serious about it. You really think that if they got offered the world, and Brett Veach picked up the phone and called Clark Hunt,
what would be the world? Did Brian Burns the world? Because
Laramie Tunsil.
I mean, but again, like this is back to Jeff's point, like the locker room, right? Like, and Tunsil's an interesting case because his cap number is really low, right? So you would have to give up a lot. You'd have to give up a 1 for him, right?
Well, the thing I will say about, sorry to interrupt you, Eric, I'll be brief. The idea of trading for stars is a lot more accessible than people realize because so much of their cap hit stays.
Yeah, it
The
stays
problem
where,
with,
but then you got to trade up picks. Now they
well,
can
yeah,
think
yeah,
about
but the problem isn't with the new team bringing the player in because the signing bonus crap stays with where they went. The team that signed him has to take that hit, so you actually get a very discounted player. Like if somebody does trade for Christian McCaffrey, they're getting a very affordable running back at that point because the cap and the guarantee stuff has to stay with the team that signed him.
but the
Problem
draft
is,
pick.
it all prorates. Like I had people hitting me up like everybody and their brother about Carolina. And if you were to take Moton, right, the right tackle they just signed, you got $39 million in dead cap and in bonus that has to hit. And Carolina can't take that hit. That's the trick. It's like you can, yeah, it looks good to come to the new team. The old team has to be able to now balloon forward all that dead cap, all that cap money that was being prorated out over the multiple years. So
But all that means, Petro, is that the draft pick compensation that the receiving team has to give up has to be higher. That was the whole point. Like the Amari Cooper trade, everybody's like, oh look, the Browns like fleeced the Dallas Cowboys by only having to give up a 5 for Cooper. But the reason was because the Browns took on the majority of Cooper's remaining money. So like there's that. So the Chiefs aren't in a position to be able to take on additional money because this deal was just for operating expenses over the next few months. They're going to have to give up their one. Now, maybe look, if they think look, there's one team in front of us between us and the Super Bowl, and that's the Buffalo Bills. And it might behoove them to go all in. And the one place where they're going to struggle is at pass rush. And maybe they think, okay, if we can flip, Chris Jones is playing amazing football this year, top-rated guy by PFF going into the week. He's playing amazing football. We'll give up our one now. We'll try to win a Super Bowl now, and then we'll trade Chris Jones and get a first-round pick back so that we can have one for when we host the draft. Okay, but I think for the most part, when it came down to Orlando Brown, when it came down to draft, only trading up once, I believe, in the draft, etc. They've mostly stayed the course of this sort of new way of kind of like building for the future, not going all in on stuff. It would be a change in direction for them to give up a high draft pick for a veteran right now.
Yeah. Yes, it would. But there's a perfect scenario out there if it would materialize. I'm not saying that one will, but if it would materialize, and they do have a quantity of draft picks for next year, probably more than they really want to try to fit into the roster. Although, we've identified the running back position as a place where 4 of them could fit, according to Eric Eager. So right there is a place to use some of your draft picks on it. Trent Williams, Nick Bosa could be playing in this game for the 49ers. What does that do? Is that the reason we're looking at a spread that's 2.5, 3 points? According to the odds makers, Jeff, after the Niners just threw up on their shoes and the Chiefs played toe-to-toe with what we agreed on our 2D podcast was the best team in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills?
Well, I think if you're looking at two players who could certainly swing the way this game goes, those would be the two guys who've been out who could do that. I mean, obviously Trent Williams certainly makes it much tougher to get to Jimmy Garoppolo and makes their run game a lot more effective. This team ran for 50 yards last week against Atlanta, and that's not who they want to be. So they want to get after it on the ground. I would expect them to try to run the ball early and often in this game against the Chiefs, both for that reason and also to try to shorten the game. And then Nick Bosa is every bit of what Von Miller can be, of what Max Crosby is. I mean, he's an elite pass rusher. And so, yeah, if he's on the field, even with all their injuries, he's the kind of guy who can create a lot of problems for your offense. So the Niners are really banged up. And so I thought they would lose this game coming into the season because of the Niners defense. I think the Chiefs win it now, but a lot depends on what happens with those two guys.
Yeah. Eric, how's this change the context of this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough, right? Because, the Niners are coming off of a loss that must be extremely embarrassing for Shanahan to his old team, the Falcons, a team that's not particularly good. They do some unique stuff, and they put a Chiefs team that wants to be a nickel. They're going to put them in 4-3, just as Willie Gay is coming back. So there are some aspects of this game that I think are thorny. I do agree with the Chiefs being 3-point favorites. But I if I had to bet this game, I probably would take the points with San Francisco just because they're at home. and they do some unique things or coming off of a loss. And this Chiefs team, they're a public play. You look at every gambling show on the internet, everybody likes the Chiefs, and the number hasn't moved out towards Kansas City all that much. That's a good indication that there's smart money on San Francisco.
Yeah. I listen, what are the 49ers in this? I mean, are they some unbeatable, what do you think the Niners are, Jeff? How bullish are you on what the 49ers are as a team?
Oh, and they're healthy. I think they're pretty I think the best defense in the league when they're healthy. The problem is they're not healthy. And so I think right now they're trying to figure out how to deal with all these injuries. Garoppolo limits them a little bit offensively as far as what they can do. I mean, they got Brandon Ayuk going last week. But again, if they're not running the football, they're not going to be doing a whole lot just because of what they need on defense as far as staying fresh, and what they need on offense as far as allowing Garoppolo to play action. And so it really comes down to the trenches. If they can come in and play the kind of football they want to play, I think they can make life hard. I think it could be a lot like the Colts game. They could drag them into a really ugly cage match type game, get after Mahomes a little bit if Bosa's playing, and just make it ugly. I think that's the kind of game they want to play against the Chiefs.
By the way, I want to respond to this. Tommy said, hold on, you just told us the Chiefs have too many draft picks. If I did say that, I misspoke. I've been told by people that the Chiefs have, like, people they don't want to come away with 12 players. You can never have too many draft picks. You can come away with too many players, right?
Yeah.
The difference between the picks. The picks give you the ability to maneuver around, trade for veteran guys, move up, move down. I personally think you can never have too many draft picks. Even if you end up drafting all of them, bring them in and see if one of them's a hit. That is somebody else's opinion, that they have too many draft picks. They want to condense that into more better players and not necessarily bring in 12 guys. I want to bring up something that's hitting big. It's from the NFL, and it's an exclusive. It's tweeted out. It's from Seth Wickersham. He's quoting it's Jerry Jones. Quote, "Don't F with me." Jerry Jones told Robert Kraft in today's league meetings. For the second time in 5 years, Jones is leading a charge against the way Roger Goodell is compensated. How about that? Jerry Jones and Bob Kraft. Listen, I've no doubt, Jeff, hell, you may have been in these meetings. I don't know. And Eric, I know you're privy to a lot of the higher ups in different teams. I've been told by some folks I know at the league office that have been in owners' meetings that it would fry your hair if you saw how some of these things go. I know that's a sexy comment, but I think that probably happens a lot more than anybody realizes. And I don't think Jerry said it while reaching for a bat. This is I've been told that, like, you're talking about 32 men in a room, most of them old white guys who have never been told no in their life.
Yeah.
And sure as hell don't know how to react to it when it is. But this is getting a lot of run. It's big out there. What's your reaction to seeing that?
Jerry was really upset with Roger Goodell a few years ago with the whole Ezekiel Elliott deal, with the whole domestic violence, and he got suspended. That's kind of what the root of all this, where it started. And he was trying to rally support around his cause before. I think he's probably still upset about it and doesn't like Roger. Obviously, Bob Kraft is a big, big supporter of Roger Goodell, despite what happened with Deflategate. And it's just a couple billionaires getting upset about it. Jerry Jones is not going to get anybody or get enough people to get behind the idea of cutting Roger Goodell's salary or pushing Roger Goodell out. Goodell's done enough bidding for these owners over the last, whatever it's been, 15 years, that he's pretty safe. So I think Jerry's got a vendetta that he's not going to get much support for.
Eric, you got a reaction to that one?
I don't know, man. I think it's a lot of folks that have kind of got lost in the sauce there, especially, as Jeff said, like, Jerry Jones has had his vendettas, and I think that this is one where you see the league in a kind of a weird situation with the Snyder stuff that they're going to get their jabs in, and I don't know if it's going to necessarily mean anybody changes ownership in Washington, but it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, Chiefs and Niners. Who wins it? Jeff, let me guess. You're on the Niners.
No, I said I'm picking the
Son.
Chiefs. I said 2 minutes ago, I'm picking the Chiefs.
Well, I heard, but I thought you said if they
Oh,
don't play.
before the season. Yeah. Right now, today, Tuesday, October 18th, whatever it is, the Chiefs win the game. And now if Nick Bosa and Trent Williams play, I'll rethink that. But I think right now, if you're talking about the Niners not being at full strength, Chiefs looking for a boost of confidence after last week, I'll take the Chiefs 27-24.
Eric?
I think that's too high scoring for this NFL season. So I'll go 21-19 Chiefs. I think the Niners cover, but I do think the Chiefs come out with a win. And you think about it, 5-2, where you've played, 4 road games, and all 7 games are against teams that had a winning record last year. It could have been worse for the Chiefs.
Yeah. I kind of like what Alex has up here, 27-17 Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are running out to 40, but I have been bullish on this Chiefs defense all along. McDuffie and Gay, I think, will make a difference for this team. And I like the Chiefs to do a better job against the 49ers. Aren't really at full strength on their running game right now. Jeff Wilson, as my daughter's fantasy team can attest, is not running the ball. Though, it's clear that not every running back is going to go for 100 yards and a touch with Shanahan calling it. I'll take the Chiefs 27-17. I think they get it done in this one, and I think it's by 10. It's no point in picking anything, unless you're going to be bold. I'll be bold. 27-17. That's what I'm going with. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for everybody joining us. Remember, if you're on the podcast or if you're in the chat room, hit that like button, hit that love button. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends about the podcast if you enjoyed. We would appreciate it. It don't cost you nothing, but it helps us out a lot. So thank you very much for joining us here on Red, Gold, and Bold. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Eric Eager, Sumer Sports. You can find him at sumersports.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810. WHB in Kansas City. 810 WHB is where you can hear my radio show Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. Thank you very much for being a part of Red, Gold, and Bold.